Is the 270 really a round that should be retired? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video, so stay tuned. Today we're going to talk about the 270 Winchester. I'm not going to go into a tremendous synopsis of what it is. There's plenty of videos that do that will tell you way more than what we're going to cover. We're just going to go over some very basic things, and then where I think this classic all-around cartridge is going. So for those that don't know, the 270 has been around for a very long time. It was introduced by Winchester in 1925. This past September marked its 100-year anniversary. Basically, the 270 is it's a 30-06 neck down to 277 caliber bullets, or if you're a metric kind of person, that'd be 6.8 millimeters. When they did that produced a cartridge that had relatively high velocities and an incredibly flat trajectory that had a very, very, very manageable recoil. I consider the 270 Winchester to be fairly moderate at worst. Depending on what you're used to shooting, it could be pretty mild. And because of those things, it made for much easier shooting, or let me rephrase that, it made for much more accurate shooting at varying yards. Because it was so flat, you didn't have to spend a whole lot of time worrying about holdovers. Your typical velocities for the 270 Winchester with a 1 in 10 twist, 130 grain bullet, you're looking on average of about 3,060 feet per second. This is probably going to be pretty debatable, but in my opinion, your typical ethical hunting ranges for the 270, depending on what you're after, 350 to 400 yards. Obviously, the further away you are, shot placement, bullet construction, those things you really got to pay attention to. Factory offerings, you can get the 270 Winchester ammunition anywhere. Typically, you're going to be looking at last time I checked the shelves, you're going to be looking at about a 130 grain to 150 grain bullets. If you're hand loading, I think like most anything, the world's your oyster. You can pretty much go from 90 on up, up into the twos if you want. I think. But for the factory rifle, you're going to be pushing that 150, 160 grain bullet comfortably in a 1 in 10. How would you use those? Well, your 90 to 110, I would think, would be for varmint, smaller deer. 130 grain ammo, I kind of consider that to be more of your versatility round. It's your good all-around kind of do-all grain. 140 to 160, that's when you're starting to really pack some punch. You're looking at large whitetail, muleys, elk, moose, caribou, bear, all of those things. Obviously, again, I can't stress that enough, placement, shot placement, and construction of the bullet you're using becomes a factor. Me personally, with my experience with the 270, I've shot it here and there over the years. I like it quite a bit. My sweet spot is that 150 to 160 grain area on the factory rifle. I just think that 150, 160 area gives you a good balance of energy and velocity to just do a lot of stuff. And that is the determining factor, is that 1 in 10 twist. So that all being said, do I think that the 270 is an outdated cartridge that needs to be retired? Absolutely not. And I'm going to show you the rifle up close and personal here in a little bit, but that's the premise of this video. Enter the fast twist barrel. This was something that we were playing around with quite a number of years ago with the 308, and we took that 308 and started bumping them down to 1 in 8, 1 in 7.5 twist, and man, it made a really good cartridge a lot better. And when you sit down and do your math, and you have an honest conversation with your customer about form to function, because even though I say I'd rather be a twist faster than a twist slower, you can overspin a bullet, i.e. you can have that thing spun up so fast that you can throw a light grain bullet in there and it'll burn the copper off it just in flight. And it won't be usable. I've been there and done that long time ago. Whole different story. But the lessons you learn through your mistakes are it's wisdom. So what you do when you run that, when you spin up a fast twist, like in this case, we took the 270 Winchester factory rifle, 1 in 10 twist, and I built that, rebarreled it with a 7.5 twist barrel. By doing that, you are going to be able to stabilize all of your bullets within reason a little bit better. But where it's really going to shine is when you start to get into those heavier bullets. In this case with the 270, those heavier, higher BC bullets, it's going to be able to handle those bullets way better. Better stabilization means better accuracy at distance. Why? Less tumble in flight, folks. That's just the fact of the matter. A high BC means less wind drift, less bullet drop. When that bullet is not wasting energy on fighting the environmentals, it's gonna retain. It will have more retained energy at distance. So I think when you look at cartridges like the 270 and you're not willing to make that jump into a whole new platform and get familiar with that platform, when you make that jump into the fast twist realm, basically you're just unlocking more versatility. That's all you're doing. You can run the lighter bullets just as accurate as you could before, maybe a little better, but certainly when you get into those longer, heavier bullets, again, especially if you reload, the world's your oyster. So then you take a cartridge that like this, where 150 grain bullet, 160 grain bullet on a elk, 300 yards, 350 yards. For me, I'm really concerned about. I'm not really tickled about going beyond that 350 yards. Now, bear in mind, this is just me with that particular round. But if I had the ability to go up to 180 grain, and I load, and I find a good load, I find a good bullet, and I'm talking the lead core bullets. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin on the monolithics. That's again another thing that you can open up with that faster twist. Now you can run the heavy coppers. Actually, I didn't even think about that till right now, because of this situation with elk. But basically, you know, where for me that 3 to 350 yard shot with the standard Winchester 270, that's something I'm not going to be, you know, I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to, well, how bad's the wind? How good is my shot? Because boy, I'm going to really pay attention to that. Where if I get that 180 grain bullet with a lot more oomph, 450, 500, that's not. I feel like that's very, very reasonable. So anyway, do I think the 270 or more older cartridges are going away? Absolutely not. I think we're in a world of pretty intelligent, or at least I like to think so, pretty intelligent riflesmiths. I haven't met too many of us yet that don't like to experiment and play around and be creative. So that being said, let's come over here and look at this here Fast Twist 270. Okay, so here we are. This is it. This is the Fast Twist 270 that I just finished. Now I'm going to go over everything with the build. And again, we had a very specific budget that we had to stick to. So my job is to, in my opinion, give him the biggest bang for his buck. Where can I get accuracy and make the best use of his money? And so here it is. So what we have is when he brought this in, it was a Remington, a factory Remington 700. It had the 270 barrel, sported barrel. So, you know, pencil barrel. He had done a Magpul stock upgrade. I've used these before. They're not a bad stock. They have a little bit more flex than I like, but what you gain is that aluminum bedding block, which greatly enhances accuracy. So, with that, what I did is we have a Bartlein 7.5 twist rifle barrel. This is 5R rifled. It's a finish length of 24 inches. That was a concession I had to make. I really kind of pushed for 26. He didn't want that long because it does 26. If you're not used to that, it does kind of make it awkward. I grew up with those long rifles, so it never bothered me, but he understands that could, you know, we left 100 feet or more or better, you know, probably 100, 150 feet, 200 feet per second on the table because of that 2 inches, but it'll be just fine. So Bartlein barrel, Remington 700 action. This is one of their better actions. You can tell by the finish. This had that nice bright finish, not that anodized crap that the newer stuff had before they went out of business. So it's an older 270. So what I did is and it's a jeweled bolt, and you can tell it hasn't been shot a whole bunch because there's not a lot of, you know, it still has a lot of jewel left on the bolt. Mine, on my rifle, it's all but gone. Anyway, back to the point. So this action has been blueprinted. It has a 300 thousandths inch recoil lug that has been surface ground. So it's very, very flat. I like the 300 thousandths because it's just adds a lot more rigidity against recoil forces. Factory trigger. Now the trigger in this is factory. Because of his job, he's used to the heavier triggers. So I said, well, with a factory trigger, I can get that down to safely in 99.9% of your scenarios. I can have that safely down to 2 pounds, and it'll be very crisp. And you know, if you really understand the Remington triggers, they're kind of like, if I had to compare them to a popular aftermarket, excuse me, it'd be like the Bix and Andy. Remington triggers by design have to have a little bit of I forget what I want to call it, over travel after you pull the trigger. If you don't, it's just not going to be safe. So I can't remember what that number is, but I'll show you that up close and personal. It's 2 pounds. It's very crisp, very clean braking trigger. I have all kinds of stuff to do that on a microscopic level. The spring for the bolt release has a heavier spring, so that, I don't know, people used to complain about bumping that and the bolt would fall out. It takes a little bit more effort to depress that spring now, so that shouldn't be an issue. Where we spent a lot of time and a lot of money, which is interesting, is right here. You'll see a lot of people focus on chambering barrels. You'll see a lot of people focus on blueprinting actions. Most people will go with the aftermarket trigger. I'll go either way. It just depends on your preference. 2 pounds is probably plenty light for most people, especially if they're hunting. But you don't see a lot of people talk about this right here, your actual fire control, i.e. the hood, the cocking piece, the bolt body, the firing pin spring, and the firing pin tip. This has a brand new bolt shroud. This is made out of aluminum, aircraft grade aluminum, Cerakoted and hardened. It has been relieved to reduce friction on the cocking piece, and very well finished, finished very well. The cocking piece has been polished and the angles are extremely crisp. The bolt body has been completely degreased, and as best as you can get in there, and I say polish, but just kind of smooth them up on the insides, that's been done. Where a lot of time was taken was on the firing pin. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I ran into a situation years ago at school where we got talking about one of my mentors, and a comment was made, I don't understand why he has an oversized firing pin. Why would anybody want to make the firing pin larger? Well, the reason for an oversized firing pin, in my opinion, is exactly for this case. So when I was looking at this, one thing I look for is I look for a coil bound spring where it will kind of look snaky when compressed. This was pretty snaky, not even compressed. So that's got to go. And then I put it in the lathe and I check the run out. That's common. Even I do that even with a lot of your premier actions like Bat and Curtis and you know, Borden and Solus and Mac Bros. You know, pretty much my philosophy is it's broke until I check it. That's you know, 30 years in the auto mechanic and industry will teach you that. I can't tell you how many new parts have come in that are either missing parts of that assembly, or it's boxed wrong, or it's broke right out of the box. So you just learn to check and recheck, and then you can rest assured that you've done all you could. So when I was looking at that, I see the springs messed up, and then I turn my attention to the firing pin tip. And what I'm looking for, a lot of times you can see it with the naked eye. If I see something, I verify it with my microscope. I'll look and I'll see, okay, yep, so this is where, and it will tell you a lot, depending on where those strike marks are, is what I'm looking at is the tip of the firing pin And when it's in the cock position, it comes out of the firing pin hole. And when you fire it, a lot of times if it's gravity will dink the bottom of the firing pin hole, or if it's bent, it'll hit that leading side and it'll leave a mark on the tip of the firing pin. Why is that important? If you have random flyers and low SDs, that's a place I would look. If your gun likes to or tends to vertical string, that's where I would look. You can have, there's a lot that can contribute to those things, but as you go through and you're fine tuning your system, those things can cause that. So how do I fix that? Like on this bolt, the firing pin hole was drilled out and bushed to a greater. That bushing goes further into the actual body so that I can capture the firing pin. So i.e. when it's in the cock position, that firing pin is still inside that firing pin hole. It can't hit anything if it's already in it, if that makes sense. The consequence for that is when you do that, you've limited the range of motion for the firing pin. So what you have to do is grind what I'll call the stem of the firing pin longer to allow for proper travel. Enter the oversized firing pin. The oversized firing pin is designed for just that. You can custom grind that to a specific diameter and a specific length. And so this has a Holland's shooter supply firing pin in it that has been ground perfectly true and of the proper length to allow for solid, reliable, precise ignition. These are a lot of things that people, you see a lot of these, but you don't see too many people. Actually, I don't think I've seen anybody really get into that on the old YouTubes. So I spent a lot of time right here, and that to me is money well spent. And then we topped it off with a Leopold 20 MOA rail and a custom muzzle brake. I make all of the, or not a custom muzzle brake, but a custom thread protector. I make all of those for each individual rifle. I like a nice seamless transition from the thread protector into the barrel. And it's just one of those added touches that just complete the package. When somebody can look at that and not even tell it's removable, I've done my job, and it's to the perfect diameter of the barrel. From there, I went out and did my barrel break-in. I didn't use any kind of special ammo. I used Winchester PowerPoint, 150 grain. I can't remember what anything is on it because it's all still out there on a sheet of paper at the range. I can tell you that the advertised muzzle velocity for this ammo is 2850, and I don't think we were running 2850. I want to say it was down around, it was in the 27s. I can't remember exactly where it was. We're in the middle of hunting season, and I like to get out in the woods, so I apologize for that. But went through my barrel break-in, shot a 10-round group, shot a slightly under in 10 rounds, shot slightly under first group, shot just under 3/4 inch with factory ammo. Second group was a 5-round group, and then a 5-round group, and those one was, they were both under 1/2 inch. One was a high 4 and the other was a low 4. And by 4 I mean 0.4. I want to say the first 5-shot group, I want to say was it's like a 0.480 something, and then the second shot group was like .46, .45, somewhere down in there, which I think is pretty good. I mean, really, if you were to go into load development and really find a good reload for that, you're probably not going to shoot. I mean, you can't shoot down in the ones because the bullet's, you know, .277. So, you know, that's really a pretty good. I'm very happy with it, and you know, I think a lot of that's the ability to stabilize bullets, and a lot of that is a quality barrel. That's just been my experience shooting. I mean, I watch a lot of people get caught up on brand new rifles, and they tune loads for them right off the bat. And personally, I wouldn't worry about that until you're, you know, 50, 60, unless you're a match shooter. I don't think that I would worry about that, and like in this case, until you're 50 to 100 rounds through the pipe, because they do speed up. A lot of times that barrel, as it gets broke in, is going to get faster, and the groups will get tighter. That's just been my experience. So I really cannot wait. He does reload, and I cannot wait for him to, he came in just before I sat down to shoot this video, and he got to see it for the first time, and he's just like, he's a happy guy. And he'll be by tomorrow morning to pick it up, and then hopefully in a couple weeks, or you know, hopefully in a couple weeks I'll get some feedback on it. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. Let's zoom in, and I'll show you the trigger real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take a look at the trigger, and you know, obviously we've checked to make sure it's clear, and it is. So you can see there's no take up on that trigger whatsoever. 2 pounds, and then I have about maybe 2 thousandths of over travel. But with the factory trigger, you do have to have a little bit of over travel. Not much, just a few thousandths, barely perceptible. But you can see no take up, very crisp, and it's a very consistent 2 pounds. So you can get good results with a factory trigger if you obey your, what I would call, laws of what makes a trigger safe and how triggers are supposed to work, and a good understanding of springs and tuning and things like that. We'll all get into that later. Okay, guys, well, that about wraps it up on the 270 fast twist. I think with the revelation of fast twist barrels, I think that basically that's a means to an end. Back in the day when I was growing up, you know, we spent a lot of time exploiting small block Chevys, 350s and 305s, 307s, big blocks, and just trying to squeeze as much as we could out of those factory offerings. And it's kind of the same thing that we're doing with these fast twist barrels. It's just a very simple way to unlock the potential of more modern and high performance bullets, and as a result, you're just taking that old feller and making it just a lot more handy and a lot more capable hunting / target rifle. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's probably a little bit of a longer video compared to my last two. I think we covered a lot of stuff. But yeah, 270 or any, I think the majority of the older classics. I think when we get away from the hype of the more modern cartridges and we just look at things through an objective lens, I don't think any of them that are worth anything are going by the wayside. So that's all for now. Stay tuned and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.